So I believe the compañeros have already mentioned a bit of the story of the people of Guatemala, what they've suffered, and these great tragedies that started in the year 1982 when they began the policy of the scorched earth policy. So it's sad to be remembering many of these things that happened in Guatemala, but it's necessary to mention them because it's a story in the life of humanity. And so for these reasons, we are here, and those of us from this region and some various regions in the people of Guatemala, we were thinking, what can we do? And I was a refugee in Mexico for 11 years, and a refugee there. We returned to Guatemala looking for how to do better and how to survive. And with the help of the CALDH, which is the Center for Human Rights Action, Legal Human Rights Action, and with the help of the Judicial Committee of the CALDH, we actually formed our group, the AJR. And there's also a group called the Mental Health Group. And they helped us during those places where the massacres for the scorched earth policies took place. And for example, the military in the 14th of March 1982 brought a cruel massacre in the Ixcan in Cuatro Pueblo, and where they killed more than 400 people, men, women, old people, children. And they said, well, those are, the military said, they're terrorists, they're guerrillas, but that wasn't true. They're just peasant farmers. So during these many years, with the help of the CALDH and with the GAP, the Guatemala Accompaniment Project, and with the help of the Mental Health Organization, we were able to put together the informations, and we could present to the Attorney General all of this information and the testimonies, so that it was a difficult work, but we were able, as survivors, thinking we have to do something. What can we do? And so the idea came to us, as many communities, and believing and knowing the legal processes in Guatemala don't often work very well, but we decided we had to bring charges against the very high command for genocide and for crimes against humanity in those years, 1982 and 1983, when they happened. And so we decided finally that we were going to concentrate on the area of the Ixil, because that's where we could find the most testimonies and the most evidences to prove that the massacres took place. I was a victim also, and that really motivated me to remain strong in the fight. The fight of 13 years. But it continued to strengthen me, and people said, oh, the spirits of the victims is present in you for you to continue in this fight. Actually, in the year 2000, when we brought the charges, but from that year until 2010, 2011, actually, Jose Efren Riosma, for the first time, was brought to trial for a court in Spain, which brought the case in Spain, and our testimonies, our witnesses went to Spain and brought those and brought a guilty verdict, which made it impossible for Efren Riosma to leave the country. And so we are talking about things that we have lived through, and the threats that then began to come against us. And we never thought maybe we could actually bring this trial, but we knew we had to try. We thought it wouldn't move because we know that we have a government of the Iron Fist, and they didn't want to hear about it. There was a government, but was also involved in that policy of the scorched earth, but thanks to the will of many organizations, not the government, but other organizations, and other strengths, other groups and people that believe that the government, the justice system in Guatemala can be changed to one that actually functions. It was a long story for us, but not just for us, but for all the people of Guatemala and all of Latin America. Never had, in a country like Guatemala, had brought to trial for genocide and crimes against humanity former heads of state. And for us as the victims, we made history, not just for us, not just for Guatemala, but all of Latin America. And to see that he could be brought to trial in his own country after so much suffering, after so much years, these generals of such power actually were brought to be judged before in a courtroom. And that's interesting, because we have set a precedent for Guatemala. And that precedent says we are not going to go back to what had happened before. But it was not easy, because in that courtroom there were plenty of military present. And they wanted to put obstacles. The government wanted to put obstacles. The government never helped anything. What they wanted to do is put obstacles so that this legal process couldn't move forward. And this was a sign, because we thought, how can we transform our country to one of true democracy? We thought we were full of fear when this trial began, because in the audience, in that courtroom, there were plenty of military, and they had control, and they had power to control certain things, what were happening in their courtroom, and they were aggressive. I say aggressive because they didn't respect human rights of any part of humanity. And they asserted a lot of control, but because there were a lot of people collaborating with us and helping us, filling the courtroom, the United Nations, for instance, and many who came there to see and to help us, they could see that justice was done. But what happened during that trial was that they tried to call us subversives. They tried to call us guerrillas, and they brought photos and testimonies about the witnesses for defense of Rios Montt brought these photos but they weren't really appropriate to the trial, because they were pictures of soldiers that were guerrillas in the mountains. But that had nothing to do with us, because we weren't bringing anything in the courtroom about a war. We were just bringing the evidence of what happened, indicating that we were nothing more than peasants. But they brought those kinds of evidences, accusing us of being terrorists or soldiers, but that wasn't true. We were nothing but a Mayan population, farmers, peasants. And people came from 5 different departments, But it wasn't easy for us to bring people from 5 different regions, and the logistics of doing that was very expensive and very difficult. And all those people that were invited to bring their testimony, day after day, we had to move them and house them, and that was difficult. And the very testimonies that were brought by the witnesses for the defense actually corroborated our story, because even though they were soldiers, the majority of them actually told the truth about what really had happened, and that actually helped us, because even though they were supposed to be testimonies for the defense, they told the truth. And we could never have discovered these things without the soldiers telling the same thing. We could not have uncovered them. And so finally, he was, Fernresmont was sentenced to 30 years to prison for crimes against humanity, and 50 years in prison for genocide, a total of 80 years in jail. Let's talk about what happened recently, what's happening recently. And these generals, the actual government has a policy of wanting to give amnesty to them. But we believe the sentence is true and fair, and so we're bringing this to teachers and to the communities as the written copies of the trial proceedings, and making sure that it gets publicized and gets known. And that's our work. And that's part of the reason we're taking this tour, so that we can look for solidarity and find people to help us. In Wednesday of this last week, we were in Washington, D.C., and we talked with members of Congress in Washington that were part of a special commission that is charged with looking into crimes against humanity and in any part of the world. And we had a good meeting with them, and they showed much interest in knowing about our case. We need the help of many people to know how we can continue to amplify our work. We need more accompaniment, international accompaniment. NISQA, Network in Solidarity with Guatemala, has accompanied our communities and accompanied the witnesses, but it's not enough. We need more. And they've helped us a lot. And that helps us to be able to lift our voice. During the war, we wouldn't have been able to talk the way I'm talking right now. But this is quite a change that we have won, and this is due to the will of the organizations that have helped us, not with the help of the government. And with more solidarity and more unity contributing, we can actually win even more for humanity in Guatemala. If we're not putting on the pressure, and if we're not united, maybe we will, it's impossible. But if we're united, everything is possible.